Hey, witches.
Hi, hello, and welcome back to another episode of True Crime, which really, this episode's not really true crime, but it is an unsolved case, so.
Yeah, I do need you to know though that I don't know what my brain kind of short circuited for a second there during the countdown and I almost went, "Hey bitches." So, you almost got an
Listen,
interesting intro today.
if you would have done that, Brittany would have fucking came in here and murdered you.
Yeah, she would have lost her fucking mind.
The best thing is that I live so far away, she can't murder me.
She
But she
kind
can
of
murder
likes
you.
me, so I don't think she would, but it's c'est la vie. Like,
I mean, there has been weirder things happen to
I'm
where
just
people.
saying, getting murdered would literally solve like 99% of my problems. So,
I feel like that would solve pretty much 100% of the people's problems, but okay.
I mean, I believe in some kind of an afterlife or maybe like reincarnation. I can't decide which. I go back and forth from day to day. So I feel that it wouldn't solve 100% of my problems, but
100% of your current life problems.
that's fair. Maybe I'll
Okay.
get reincarnated into a different country.
Oh, maybe. Anyways, so depending on the country, it will depend on the time frame.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for.
Maybe I'll get reincarnated as a white man.
Ugh.
I mean, I agree, but it would make my life easier.
Except for right now.
Great white man.
So anyways, like I said, this podcast episode is technically true crime, but it's not a true crime story in a way. It is an unsolved case where 9 hikers vanished and just turned up dead.
It's
Basically,
a weird case.
it is, and it's so interesting. And they actually made a game after it because like there was theories like flinging around about what could have happened. And so they made a game after it where essentially you are the hikers preparing to do all these things, but you're at night and you are like following along these signs. And like in the end, you are actually the hiker. Essentially the hikers found this like abandoned test facility, and it was like a place where the Russian sleep experiment happened. But the Russian sleep experiment ended up making these people like supernatural in a way, where they could like time travel, and they time traveled back and they essentially haunted themselves prior. It's like a weird like paradox of like what's that movie that Leo whatever his face is in where you like think he's one thing and then all of a sudden he's like an investigator for something, but he's actually like a patient.
Oh, yep. Shutter
Yeah.
Island.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where you're believing something all along and all of a sudden you're like, what? You're the cause of all of this kind of thing.
Can we just like pause and like applaud me for knowing something other than a book?
Yeah,
And then
that's
can I
actually.
fuck that up for you and tell you that I read the book before I watched the movie?
I mean, did you really fuck it
Also,
up when I figured that was a thing?
also, like the author of that book has written tons of other books. I think that's the author of that book.
You're gonna find out.
Just kidding. Just kidding. So an author very similar to that author is Ted Decker, and he's written a very similar book to that one where it's like a multiple personality disorder kind of vibe. And that genre was my jam for like a hot minute.
It's very good.
But anyway, Shutter Island is actually a really good movie, and it follows the book
It
fairly closely.
Well, that's good. That's not often that you get that. But that's good. Um, so anyways, we're gonna talk about the Dyatlov Pass incident, which is one of the most perplexing cases in essentially an unsolved tragedy. There's going to be, details that have been verified, some of the investigative findings, and just a lot of the ongoing debates surrounding this case. So in February 1959, 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute embarked on an expedition into the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia. Their destination, I was gonna say, the Ural Mountains are like at this specific part, but to be honest, I think it's part of like Siberia, like just a little part into Siberia, I believe. Anyways, so, huh?
I said I think so.
So, their destination where they were going to go is near the Kolat Listen, I took Russian a while ago, but when it's not in Cyrillic and it's in English, it really throws me off because I'm just like, how am I supposed to pronounce that? Um, Kolat Shackle. Shackle, something like that. I just know it's an S with the backwards R, Shia, and then Hull. Oh, shawl. Kolat shawl. Because the KH in there, like when you learn it, it's supposed to be like the sound. It's not like the noise, but it's the noise. Anyway, so it's a name derived from the Mansi language that translates to dead mountain. Apt name, if you ask me. This is a very remote area, and it is actually it's notorious due to its foreboding name, and it would soon actually be linked forever with this tragedy and this mystery. It's also important to note that this is not just some college group that wanted to go hike up a mountain for like a weekend party kind of thing. It is not a summer camp location. It is February 1959 in fucking Russia. Let me tell you, that shit gets cold.
Yeah.
It
And they
is,
were like experienced hikers.
yeah. They are experienced, well trained, and they were well equipped for these harsh winter environments of the Ural Mountains. And I mean, it's difficult for experienced trekkers, essentially. And so this expedition was initially considered a routine academic excursion until circumstances took quite the disastrous turn. I think they also made a movie about this, Dyatlov Pass movie.
They
It's a
probably
movie.
did.
Um, that was also a pretty good movie. Um, so here's a little bit of timeline and the incident look. So this is kind of what we know about the timeline and the events. So the expedition launched consisting of 10 individual hikers. One member turned back early for health reasons. That soon left 9 hikers to continue on this group. This tragedy is generally dated around the night of February 1st or the 2nd in 1959. The group had failed to report back as scheduled and thus conducting a search and rescue. Teams were mobilized to go out and try to figure out what happened to them. Investigators ended up finding the campsite. So investigators found the group's tent on a slope. This tent had been cut open from the inside. Now think about that. You're camping and you cut in from the inside. What scared you so much that you had to get out of your tent by cutting it open? And then there were footprints that were found that were leading away from the camp in various directions, suggesting that an abrupt and panicked departure under adverse conditions. Now listen, fresh footprints. Do you think they had time to put on their boots when they cut from inside their tent? Probably not.
No, they did not.
I know. So the inside, like during the examination of the campsite, and the bodies that they had found actually revealed a number of critical details for this case. The tent was found in a place, but it was slashed open from the interior. So, like, inside supplies were all left undisturbed, while outside, the sets of footprints and fresh snow pointed away from the tent. So, like, where were they going? And when I say rule, like, it is just straight snow caps, and that's it.
There's not like
And
a
it's,
gas station nearby or anything.
yeah,
Like the middle of nowhere.
it's like climbing Mount Everest. Like, you're there alone. Um, and the autopsies of those who were found showed a split evidentiary record. So 6 of the hikers died of hypothermia. 3 of them had physical trauma. How do you have physical trauma? What happened to you? Um, sorry, allergies and pollen. um, so the specific physical trauma were fractured skulls, broken ribs, and even severe soft tissue damage. That's quite a lot for nothing happening out there. I mean, there's probably like rocks and all that, so like there's your physical, like that could have caused the physical trauma, but like why were they cutting from the inside out? Like what was going on?
Yeah.
In some cases, the bodies exhibited particular like unsettling injuries. One victim was reported to have been found without her tongue or her eyes, which these details have fueled a lot of debate regarding the nature or the magnitude of the specific force involved that caused this tragedy to happen. So immediately after the incident, the Soviet authorities like attributed the deaths to quite the compelling natural force, a term that was that had offered little clarity and left a lot of questions unresolved. And I'm not saying like the Soviets were hiding something, but I feel like if a government official, regardless of who they are, Soviet or non-Soviet, they sit there and say compelling natural force, tell me they didn't die in a landslide or by hypothermia without telling me that. Bitch, what'd you do to them?
I don't know.
Like,
Like,
I would immediately be like, oh. Um, Regardless of that, over the decades since 1959, several theories have emerged over this incident. Some call it the slab avalanche theory. So recent studies, including computer simulations by teams from the institutions such as EPL, FL, and ETH Zurich. Don't ask me those acronyms. I didn't bother to look them up. Some university, probably over in Europe somewhere, proposed that a rare slab avalanche might have destabilized the group's campsites. So the idea that a sudden localized avalanche could have created enough danger to force the hikers to abandon their shelter in a panic, explaining both the hasty exit and some of the injuries recorded. I feel like that is the most common idea.
but it
Most
doesn't make
non,
sense.
huh?
But it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, because when you're thinking of like an avalanche, like a slab avalanche, I'm thinking like a thick sheet of ice coming racing towards you.
Yeah.
Now, I've never been in an avalanche. I've never like physically witnessed one in person, but I'm going to say that it's probably pretty loud. You're going to hear it starting.
Yeah. But
But you're in the middle of
I could
nowhere.
I could get with that. I could get with it being an avalanche, except their tent isn't moved. It's where they left it.
Exactly. I was going to say it's
And
exactly in place.
did the avalanche rip her tongue and eyes out?
No.
No, it didn't. So
And
that doesn't make
honestly,
sense.
if like let's say she was like not dead, but let's say she was laying there or something, I don't know,
Yeah.
and she was like on the brink of death. uh why are you going to take the eyeballs and the tongue?
Right. And it makes no sense.
Like, those three things out of any other fleshy part of the body that you could choose to eat to survive?
Yeah, that.
Why that? Ugh. Anyways, so another one is environmental factor. So extreme sub-zero temperatures coupled with potentially disoriented weather phenomena may have contributed to the chaos. Some researchers argue that the combination of hypothermia and the abrupt shock of an environmental force could explain the varied type of injuries. Now, I will say this is probably the most scientifically based thing ever in terms of how some of them died, because I am low key obsessed with uh Everest, with Mount Everest. I don't know why. I have no
Yeah.
idea why. I'm not a hiker. Low key obsessed with it. Um and I've watched a lot of documentaries on Everest and read a lot of things about it. And the shit that happens to you when you're at a specific altitude in sub-zero weather, like your brain immediately like shuts off and starts like you can start hallucinating. Like
Yes.
when you're in hypothermia, you can feel like you're hot and then you start stripping to make it worse. That's
Yes.
how one of the people died on Everest. He was running out of oxygen, and his oxygen made him a little delirious, and he stripped, and then he was missing. And then the dude that died in a cave died in that cave.
Yeah. I feel like that's the most likely theory that's out there because that would explain her injuries too. Like if one of the other people lost their minds, like because of the hypothermia or whatever, and started to attack her because they thought, I don't know, she was a bear, like they were hallucinating and started to attack her, it would make sense why she cut her way out of, or someone cut their way out of the tent. We don't know who was sleeping in what tent. So, like, why they cut their way out of the tent, why her eyes and fucking tongue are missing. Like,
Hmm.
it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I feel like the second
And
most likely theory is the military one, like that they stumbled on a military testing site or something.
I love that one.
Yeah.
um, but like, so I honestly, I really enjoy the not enjoy it. I don't want to say like someone's tragedy is my enjoyment, but like
You're
debate.
fascinated.
Yeah, the debate one. I honestly really like the environmental factors because like you're on a mountain by yourself. It's very quiet. Like when you're out in pure nature, it is so quiet. It's kind of like that room that is so quiet that you can hear your heartbeat or like your blood pumping or whatever, and like if you survive so many minutes or whatever, like you could go insane from how quiet it is. I'm not saying this happened, but like when you are cold, you're trying to stay warm. Is 1959. Some of that shit is not good enough. Um to be quite honest, I don't know how anybody survived climbing fucking Everest in 1900s in like 1915. I
Yeah,
don't know
no.
how any of that bullshit happened with like the gear that they did not have. But regardless of that, the I like that theory the most. Not because it's something that you can like make it plausible or whatever. It's just because like outside factors can really fuck with your psyche, your body, everything. And it's just fascinating how one or two little factors outside of your life, not outside of your life, but like in your physical world can really fuck up your mental world and just careen off the side of the road kind of thing. Um, Other hypotheses are less widely accepted, but they include theories of infrasound induced panic. So, this phenomena is where naturally occurring low frequency sound waves trigger severe anxiety, uh, or even possibilities of military involvement or secret weapons tests in the region. However, these latter scenarios remain highly speculative and are not supported by strong physical evidence. But to reiterate that thing, back in the 50s, back in the early 60s, there was not a lot of evidence-based practices that you could easily get a hold, like blood. You couldn't test for blood until later on, like the 80s, I think it was. So it's not necessarily that they didn't have strong evidence of the time. It's hard to document and keep that document like pristine to nowadays. Especially with a lot of the Soviet and the like back and forth with what's going on over there. But regardless of that, it's not necessarily. I also like the infrared induced panic theory because again, that's an outside factor that kind of fucks with your brain. It's kind of like the I think there's like a place in America where you can go and search, not search, but it's like it's a point where the there's like a magnetic pole there or something like that. And maybe it's like in Kentucky. I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 spots that's like in between everything. And it's just got a strong magnetic pole there. And I mean, a lot of like ghost hunters have gone there to like, because people think it's like the gateway of something. I don't know, but it could have been something like that too. Much of our world remains unseen and you know, discovered. It's not impossible. But as years gone by, they did actually reopen this case. Well, yes, they reopened it. So in 2019, the Russian authorities reopened the investigation, and by July 2020, which I don't feel like is enough time, but whatever, official statements lean toward the avalanche theory, citing that the hikers were forced to leave their tent in conditions of low visibility and inadequate clothing, ultimately succumbing to hypothermia. I can kind of see this because if you hear an avalanche, do you know where it's coming from in low visibility? Maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't
And
think
so, like, you're running out of there thinking an avalanche is coming, and then you actually get caught in the avalanche.
Yeah.
Because they all went off in different directions.
Yeah, they did. I don't know.
And they found 2 that died of hypothermia, but then the other ones were, like, fucking traumatized.
Yeah.
But, so more recently, experts have suggested that a slab avalanche, a sudden and forceful collapse of a compacted snow layer, could account to both the traumatic and hypothermic deaths. This reassessment is based on detailed computer models simulating conditions under which such an avalanche might occur. Despite these findings, there have been some critical questions that have persisted. The injury discrepancies. Some of the severe injuries, such as major cranial trauma, raise questions about whether a modest avalanche could cause such damage.
And I
The
don't know,
behavioral.
missing tongue and eyes.
Yeah.
Just doesn't quite makes sense.
None of that, yeah. Behavioral anomalies. The fact that several hikers left the safety of their tent in a near panic state, despite the protective shelter it provided, remains one of the most puzzling aspects of this case. Documentation and evidence. The limited documentation and conflicting forensic reports from the initial Soviet investigation leave a legacy of uncertainty that modern research continues to grapple with. I'm also not saying it's anything that the Soviets have done, but I am saying that Soviet Russia in like the 50s and on was probably a very, very traumatic time. I remember when I went to Russia, my teacher got so freaking dark. We were literally walking. We got on the subway. We went to a different part of St. Petersburg and we were getting on a, what is it? You're getting on a bus to go to. Nobody knows who this dude is, apparently, but his name's Pushkin. He was a huge. Russians love poetry. Russians love literature. They are very, very artsy people. He was a huge, like, short story, children's novel kind of like person. He wasn't no Leo Tolstoy or. Fuck. That was not his name. Leo Tolstoy.
Yeah.
I was trying to say Tolstoy.
Oh, okay. I was like,
um,
you're right. I don't.
yeah, like he was basically like Tchaikovsky for like short stories kind of stuff. Um, and he
I did
got
do
onto
it before I said that, right?
yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
You just looked like you were talking
I was.
to the camera or something. I don't know. But so we were on our way to his the house dedicated to him kind of thing. Um and heading to this bus stop is a giant square, and in the middle of that square is a giant statue of Lenin. And while I was standing there, I was like, "Oh, that's Lenin," and I took a photo of it. My teacher goes, "Yeah, I remember, or my mom remembers walking the streets here." And let me tell you, he was like 40 something when I was in high school or college. So his parents were probably alive during this like incident, like probably lived through it at some point in time in their life. And the way he described how his mother lived, traumatizing. His
Yikes.
mom would literally shuffle on the ground because she didn't have enough energy to step over people.
Oh,
People were dying in the streets because of famine. And
so
they
magical.
didn't, like, no one had enough energy to step over dead bodies. They would have to shuffle around the dead bodies.
Oh no.
Her brother died from starvation. Like, that's this time in Soviet Russia. I'm not telling you that Soviets did a wrong thing, but I'm telling you this is not a good time to be alive in general. Like,
I
in
feel
with all of
like
the shit that was happening.
in just I don't know because obviously I haven't done that much research into this case. I've just listened to podcasts about it. But that gives this case the energy of like the rich people that went down in that fucking submersible and imploded.
I didn't want to say that, but like you're right though.
Rich assholes energy. Because like only rich people could afford the gear and like the time
They
to
were at
travel up
college
a mountain.
too, so like,
Yeah.
but it was a college type of
But
trip.
also only rich people could afford to go to college at that time if they were people dying in the streets of starvation.
First
Although
of all, too, and it's Polytechnic, so it's like it's not social studies.
right.
So they were smart too. Um anyways, so I'm not saying shit was tampered with, but I'm also
Well, sketchy, okay.
not disproving it. Um anyway, so while extensive research has provided the plausible explanations, the full picture of the Dyatlov Pass incident still remains elusive. Um, why did the experienced hikers choose to abandon their secure shelter in the brutal conditions? It's
Yeah, like they knew
February.
they weren't going to survive
Yeah,
without
it's
doing this.
February. Like, what's happening? How do we reconcile the contrasting patterns of hypothermia with clear signs of the physical trauma? Not even excluding the tongue and the eyeballs missing. Um, and then to what extent do we say environmental factors versus the potential external shocks explain this tragedy? So like how much of this versus how much of that is going to combine this story? And then so it's yeah, anyways. The incident continues to be quite a subject of interest for historians, forensic experts, and researchers alike because it encapsulates the challenges, um, excuse me, of investigating events where natural conditions, human behavior, and limited evidence intersect. It's fascinating, but it would drive me fucking crazy.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
gonna lie. But all in all, in summary, the Dyatlov Pass incident was not only a tragic loss of life, but also quite the complex case study in understanding how environmental hazards, abrupt panic responses, and forensic mysteries can intertwine. Ongoing reevaluations and modern scientific analysis underscores that. Even after more than 60 years, new perspectives may yet illuminate aspects of this enduring enigma. And honestly, who knows? There might be some type of thing in the future that can really unravel a lot of things. And let me tell you, I would like to be alive when that happens. I want to know.
Yeah.
What if it was the Yeti? Because I remember I spoke about this during the Yeti conversation,
Yes.
where you think you're the Yeti and you're really not. But um so yeah, so I encourage you to look up and look into your own theories about this case and read up about it. It's not necessarily a giant case, but it is something along the lines that you can kind of dive into it for a little while.
Yeah, in the
So
movie,
like
there's actually two movies. There's a documentary style movie called Dyatlov Pass, something, something, something. And then there's one called Devil's Pass, which is like a horror
yeah,
movie
Devil's
based
Pass,
on,
that's what it is.
yeah, based
Yeah.
on the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
I looked
Kind
it
of.
up. I haven't
Yeah.
seen either one of them, but I looked it up while you were
You gonna
talking.
watch it?
Probably not. Horror is not my genre of
It's
movie.
not a horror though.
Oh, it looks like it from the pictures and stuff.
Well, yeah, do you not fucking see what this is? It's a
Oh,
tragedy. It's like the Titanic.
well,
It's a tragedy.
it does not look like my type of movie, but
At
maybe.
least watch a summary of it, okay?
Okay. I'll watch the trailer on YouTube or something.
You won't know the answer.
Well, that'll be more like the real case because we don't know the answer.
Just kidding. I already told you the answer. It's because I'm not gonna lie, I got the movie and the game mixed up. The movie is where you're like the future version of yourself. Like you're like this weird spindly, like Wendigo looking creature
Yeah,
that
that's
comes
what
back
it
and
looks
haunts
like.
them. The game is something similar, but you're the one hunting the hikers. You're not like the I don't know. It's like it's some weird like psychological fucked up thing. Anyways, as
Love
always,
it.
I encourage you to engage with this material. So if you would like to talk to us, let us know what you believe is the most plausible explanation for this event. Which aspects of the investigation did you find the most compelling, and what questions still remain unanswered for you? Not that we have the answers, but I would love to discuss with anyone who would love to discuss with me.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you for listening today, and until next time.
Bye.